Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a story of the victory of human spirit. Immense courage, endurance, and a billion prayers have all led us to this day, the 28th of November 2023, a day that goes down in history as a day when India collectively heaved a sigh of relief. 17 days later, 41 trapped workers rescued, freed, brought out of the Silkyara barcode tunnel in Uttarakhand. All these visuals on your screen are from today. Workers coming out, ambulances and a chopper were on standby. A green corridor was ready to take them to the health community center in Chinyalisore. It's been a massive national effort with 10 agencies involved, including the NDRF, SDRF, the Indian Army and the Indian Air Force. International tunneling experts were also called in. And not just this, we also saw the marriage of science with faith, as right outside the tunnel, a small temple was built as the rescue teams faced and overcame every obstacle in their path. Families of the trapped workers were ready with bags of fresh clothes. Chief Minister Dhami welcomed the workers with garlands, accompanied by MOS Road and Transport Ministry, DK Singh. Listen in to what the Chief Minister said.
इस पूरे अभियान में लगे हुए सभी कर्मचारियों को, सभी कार्मिकों को, सभी विशेषज्ञों को, सभी हमारे वैज्ञानिकों को, सभी भारत सरकार की संस्थाओं को और एक एक व्यक्ति जो मीडिया से भी थे, उन समेत मैं सबका धन्यवाद करता हूं कि इस बहुत ही कठिन और चुनौतीपूर्ण काम को सभी लोगों ने अपना सहयोग प्रदान किया और बहुत चुनौतीपूर्ण काम होते हुए भी प्रातःकाल और शाम दोनों टाइम हमारे प्रधानमंत्री आदरणीय मोदी जी लगातार इस रेस्क्यू अभियान की हमसे सभी लोगों से लगातार जानकारी करते थे.
Now, when machines failed, hands helped. Rat hole miners were called in last minute and they finally helped out with what we are seeing today. But as we celebrate the successful completion of this rescue operation, these 17 days have led to some pertinent concerns. What about the trauma that these workers went through? What led to this tunnel collapse? And what are the lessons learned? Joining me on the show today, Dr. Sanjeev Bagai, he's the chairperson at Nephron. Sandeep Chachra, ED Actionaid India, also joins us. And Dr. Deepak Raheja, he's a psychiatrist, also Director Hope Care India, joins us. Good evening and welcome to all of you. Dr. Sanjeev Bagai, I would like to start with you. We've had some extremely dramatic and overwhelming visuals coming out today from Uttarkashi. Thankfully, we've completed this rescue operation successfully. All the 41 men are out. But here's where our concerns begin. What about their health? They are being currently taken to the community health center where they will be given primary medical treatment. But what are the first few things that doctors would be looking at?
Good evening. I think this has been a miraculous task of various agencies coming together and working in a very, very synchronized manner. So full marks to them. Now, whenever you have an entrapment or someone in a confined space as an isolation, either singularly or in this case, luckily as a group, various things happen in the external environment, which includes change in humidity, high pressure, hypothermia, that is low body temperature because the environment is getting colder because of the winter, and various other things like no light, less water, which can cause dehydration, less electrolytes, which cause muscle cramps, cardiac complications, low body salts, high potassium, cardiac abnormalities, lack of protein and calories, which gives muscle wasting and malnutrition, low immunity, high hormones, lack of sleep, sleep disturbances, hearing problems, they can't see bright light for a while, and more importantly is psychological issues and mental health issues. So when a patient like this comes out or a person like this comes out on ground level, they have to be dealt with in what we call as ABC. Look at the airway, look at breathing, look at circulation. That means you have to stabilize the person from a hemodynamic point of view. Make sure that his blood pressure is normal, circulation is good, and the airway is clear. Check the blood sugars so that your blood sugars are normal, and then shift the patient to the hospital and run more detailed lab tests, which will definitely include body electrolytes, liver function, kidney functions, and hemograms and things like that. But ongoing, and this would take about 2 or 3 days, so there is no hurry in sending these kind of people home from the hospital. They may not require critical care, but they will require close observation. But more importantly is to look at short-term and long-term impact of mental health issues. It's one of the most commonly neglected parts of overall healthcare, not only in India, but worldwide. These kind of people who come in from a close isolation, away from their families, without any nutrition, will suffer concepts of fear, anxiety, panic, uncertainty, and long-term what we call as traumatic stress syndrome, what we call as something which hurts them psychologically. So the sleep disturbances will be there. Many of them will have depression, psychosis, and so on. So I think it has to be a multi-pronged attack as far as managing their physical well-being, mental well-being, and emotional well-being. Meeting their families, of course, will be a huge benefit to them. But I think ongoing, the rehabilitation may take few weeks, going up to many months.
Dr.
Economically,
Bagai,
we must support them because many
Dr.
of them may
Bagai,
not be in a mental health condition to go back to work immediately. They are just poor workers. So we need to support them financially. But a lot of prayers for all the families.
Dr. Bagai, the visuals that we are showing to our viewers are when the workers came out. And, I know it's too early, but from the looks of it, at least we are able to see them walk out on their own, smiling, relieved. Is it too early to sort of judge their parameters, their vital parameters right now?
I think just gauging them on screen or seeing them physically, externally, would not be a total appropriate way. I think they will require a more detailed clinical examination and at least the essential lab work to make sure that they are well. 17 days without adequate nutrition and water in a closed, confined space without light, with so much of uncertainty, fearing death almost every second, will have an impact. And I think close monitoring is in order, and I'm sure they will be doing it.
Okay. Dr. Deepak Raheja, Dr. Bagai very rightly said that there will be mental health concerns. What are the kind of mental health concerns and challenges that we are looking at now that these 41 men are out? How should they be monitored? What are the early signs that we should be looking at for somebody who's, feared and seen death so closely, for somebody who's been trapped and hasn't seen sunlight, hasn't seen day in and day out? They've been trapped continuously in that tunnel.
I think it is too early to try and gauge anything from the mere appearance of what we are seeing on TV as they walk out, because post the initial period of triumph where the adrenaline pumping is at its peak and they have come out, we are not negating the fact that the resilience of these workers may be greater than normal population, but still they will go through many roller coasters and many ups and downs. And beyond this moment of triumph and altruism, in the coming days, we will have to look for challenges that are often seen in post-stressful situations or the symptoms of post-traumatic stress, which if they linger beyond a few weeks, which can include sleep disturbances, anxiety, flashbacks, trauma, absolute fearfulness, claustrophobia. I mean, we can't really negate the fact that 17 days of being trapped in very, very horrid and very, very trying circumstances would have really cast a spell on them. Of course, the resilience looks good. They have stood the test of this long duration, but I think they will need to be monitored, seen over a period. We cannot really judge and jump to the conclusion that they are all right. They will definitely need rehabilitation. 17, 18 days of being in darkness, in humid environment where silica is high, is extremely traumatic and trying for the body. And now that the body and the mind got acclimatized to a certain kind of functioning, for them to come out, this is going to be once the initial period of this drama and this resilience. I mean, there's this theater. I mean, it's theater because there are many people and there's a lot of commotion here. Once this settles down, they will have a dip. They might go through symptoms, and we cannot negate that. We cannot discount that. And I think they will need to be very carefully watched, and very, very astute periodic monitoring and rehabilitation is definitely going to be required for them.
Okay. Okay, Sandeep Chachra, one of the lessons that this incident has led us to learn is the fact that you do not tamper with nature. And nature has been giving these hints to us time and again that we need to have proper environmental clearances, that the Himalayan range is too vulnerable. You do not tamper with it in the name of development. But here's the point. If not development, then how do we progress forward? How do we move forward if we don't construct roads and tunnels and highways?
Shreya, first of all, good evening and thank you for having me here. Today, our hopes and prayers have turned to joy. So I firstly take a minute to applaud and salute the spirit individually and collectively of all the workers who were trapped inside. But not just them. The workers who went inside, you were talking of rat hole miners, but others who were with torches, actually clearing the iron girders at great risk. And you have heard their stories. Salute to their spirit, salute to their courage. So I want to say that to the families who, were giving hope, but to all the agencies, which you have named a few, the India, both central and state, the NDRFs and the SDRFs, the Indian Army, Air Force, the Madras Sappers, and so many other agencies which collaborated under immense pressure, criticism, and media spotlight. You see, it's working under immense pressure to make this happen. So I just want to overwhelmingly and unambiguously salute that work that has been done to get the workers out. So salute to all. And my joy I share here with everybody concerned. Now, you talked about lessons. I think there are two very strong lessons which are coming out. The first of those lessons is with reference to the nature of development in the precarious ecologies. Now, here we are talking of Himalayas, and you were talking about balances. But Himalayas are extremely young mountain chain, and they're evolving. That sort of seismic areas just near the tunnels which were being dug is the main central thrust, the tectonic plates, which are going to they're prone to all kind of very high seismic activities. So in these critical ecologies, the idea of development itself, which you were talking to, Shreya ji, needs to be sort of rethought and reimagined. So what is the kind of development Himalayas can sustain? Comes the question of the carrying capacity, comes the question of what kind of, not just people, Himalayas can sustain and so on and so forth, but the kind of grey infrastructure, the kind of construction, the kind of roadways, the kind of broadening of roads, 45-degree slopes, which have only been creating landslides, collapses, denudation of forest areas. So I think this needs to be recalibrated, and we need to be planning with nature and with the Himalayan nature in particular, which with climate change has become even more critical. So I think that's one arena which is needed, and that's the turning point. Himalayas are sort of telling us, they've been telling us long, but in this year itself, in 2023, if you take the sinking of Joshimath, the kind of landslides we saw a few months ago in Himachal, but also the glacial outbursts in Sikkim. So these are very loud, clear, tall order messages that nature is giving us in our effort to tame the Himalayas. So yes, people need to travel safe, things have to move, but you can't have the same model of development that we have in other parts of the world or in our plains replicated into such critical ecologies. and very critical ecologies, which are Himalayas. So I think that needs reimagination. And central should be how do we plan, keeping in mind the Himalayan nature. So I think these are lessons that one of the tall lessons or the turning points this whole sort of incident, and not just this, is talking to, and I think it's a loud message. The second is the message with reference to how do we treat our informal workers, and I think these are also need strong people oriented, national future oriented. They are the makers of our country. So that lesson is with reference to, you see, most of the workers there are informal workers, migrant informal workers. And if we sort of, although National Highways Authority has asked for a safety audit of all the tunnels, the 29 under construction tunnels, and it's great that that's happening. But end of the day, in this particular instance, as you know, there was no escape routes available. These are lessons we all know. There are protocols there which were not followed. When private companies are involved, you need to make sure they don't cut corners at the cost of workers to make more profit. So I think lessons were completely ignored. I want to take you back to a memory of Atal Tunnel, which was constructed a few years ago in Kullu and the Lahore Spiti areas. Now there, the company involved was following, and I'm not trying to talk about a particular company, but those protocols, safety protocols, escape protocols were all followed. So you did not see such kind of instances. This was also in the Himalayas. So that, I think, has been given a short shift in this instance and several other instances in the past as well. That safety record,
You know what's
caring for
extremely
our informal
bizarre
workers.
and I
Yeah,
can't understand is the fact, Sandeep, that
yeah.
every time when such incidents happen, why are we not learning our lessons? It's not as if the people who are involved, the authorities, the agencies, the construction companies, that they don't realize what they're tampering with, that they are dealing with young mountains, they are dealing with vulnerable areas. And as you said, now, the threat is more because of global warming, because of climate change. How are these things not considered? How is a proper geological survey not undertaken? How are proper environmental clearances not given? Is it just our greed that is defeating everything else?
Partly yes. If you look globally, if you look nationally, I think when you sort of give out development in the hands of private corporations, this kind of greed comes into play. In public hands, you need much better regulation of these private companies which are doing it, and this cuts across. I am not talking to a particular state here. So partly yes, partly you do have protocols. So it's not as if the MOUs with the companies will not have protocols. Partly it's the question of how do you hold such actors accountable. That track record of sort of liability, accountability, of actually if you look at the track record, that's extremely poor. So at the implementation level, all of these kind of things are happening. So you kind of you make merry the buck and go home, hoping that nothing adverse happens. But long-term impacts are there. So I think partly it's also the question of how do we do accountability. Business and human rights is a growing arena which needs to be further sort of implemented. We have some broad protocols, we have some international guidelines, we have these national voluntary guidelines. But I think that's an arena where you need to make strict regulations and strict oversight implementation possible of anybody who's involved in this kind of public activities, which involve informal workers, which involve critical ecologies, construction in these spaces. So I think that's another arena, Shreya, that needs very strong public oversight, transparency, and certainly enforcement. And certainly the question of holding the guilty accountable. There is a criminal liability involved. Had the workers, I really, sort of praying, and this happened, those prayers were answered, all that. But had the workers had some fatalities, injured, who would have been accountable? How many people would have been put into that criminal accountability? That wouldn't have happened. I mean, that track record, that data is available of workers' accidents, and this is not just tunneling one is speaking of.
That needs to happen even now. We've got all our 41 men back safe, but that accountability needs to happen even right now. But Dr. Sanjeev Bagai, there were also reports of the fact that inside the tunnel, while these men were trapped, they were being asked to meditate, do yoga, exercise as much as possible. I know it's not very much possible where they were stuck, but whatever little was possible for their well-being. But help us understand if a situation like that does arise, what are the first few things we should be looking at within ourselves, and what should we be really doing so that our physical body at least can take us through this challenging time?
Yeah, so I think the first most fortunate thing is that the local civic authorities on the ground level and the government were able to identify the exact location. And with that, the communication channels started within a few days of them being cordoned off many feet, many meters below Earth. And the second is to send them the essential food and water in a liquid form so that they could sustain themselves. But as far as an individual is concerned, I think again it's fortunate that these people were in a group of 41, and one was definitely supporting the other. The worst case scenario is when a person is alone, and then the person can mentally crumble. But I think you need to be mentally strong. You're bound to have periods of and intense periods of fear, loneliness, darkness, lack of ventilation, lack of oxygen, of course, lack of water, food, and nutrition. And all these play a great havoc within 24 to 48 hours going forward. So I think it's a lot to do with your personal mental strength, your resilience, faith. I think the communication channels of telling the people to do yoga or to believe in the God and things. Faith is a great binder. So I think it was good that there were 41 were together, but even better was that the local authorities above, through technology, could isolate and pinpoint the exact location. Over to you.
Okay. Dr. Deepak Raheja, last word to you. We know that they have collectively gone through a trauma that perhaps none of us can understand right now, what they went inside, what they felt through this challenging time. But as people who live with them, beside them, are accompanying them as a society, what can we do in such situations to help such people out? And for starters, I would also like to say, and I've been repeating this on my shows today, that the media, first and foremost, should not be hounding them, should not be putting mics in their faces, asking them how they feel. Their mental health should be respected at this time. But help us understand as a society, what should we be doing?
So I think as administration, as a nation, we have not been found wanting in providing all resources that were required to make this mission possible. It has been possibly an amalgamation and licensing of 20 or more agencies that got together to make this happen. So in terms of mental health services, I do not think the government and the administration would want to turn any stone unturned to provide all resources available to them. But like you said, as a society, I think we are largely a resilient society. We stand by each other. We are a very close-knit, social fabric. So I think we just need to be there, give them their privacy, let them be with their families and the support system that they choose for themselves. And at one end, the concept of post-traumatic stress disorder, which is largely a Western concept where the fabric of the society is not very strong and the support systems are not very strong, vis-a-vis a country like ours where the outcome of mental illnesses per se is better than in the West because of the support system, the family structure. So I think we are going to be there, let them have their own space, let them find their own support system, with the government machinery being available, with all the mental health facilities at their beck and call, with periodic assessment of their mental health status and the mental health needs. So, I also want to put in a word here that sometimes in a country like ours, there is something known as a post, stressful growth where people who emerge from it become more sound, more deeper human beings. They have greater gratitude, they have greater empathy, and they go on to become more robust, resilient individuals. But I think that's also contingent upon the support that the society is able to provide. And I don't think society like ours in India is found wanting in that parameter. So I think we are going to be there for them, and we will provide them all the support, and I don't see a reason why they will not amalgamate into their day-to-day life, and they've stood the test of time.
Absolutely.
70 days, not one person collapsed, not one person had a nervous mental health breakdown. But like I said, beyond this moment of triumph and altruism, there are going to be many roller coasters, and they need to be watched very, very carefully for any signs of stress or trauma that they might exhibit.
Okay. But today, of course, we know there's been light at the end of the tunnel, and thankfully all our 41 men are out. Sandeep Chachra, Dr. Deepak Raheja and Dr. Sanjeev Bagai, thank you, gentlemen, for sharing your thoughts and helping us understand the situation better and speaking with us on Mirror Now. Thank you very much. Namaskar. It's a wrap on Beyond the Headline, but news and updates will continue on the other side. Thank you very much for joining us right now. Bye-bye. Good night.